Birds is an American horror movie from the year 1963, directed by the famous and infamous Alfred Hitchcock. The movie is about Melanie, a young girl, falling in love, getting into a relationship with Mitch, and then birds start attacking, apparently for no reason. But having watched this movie over and over and over since I'm like a little kid, I think that I figured out the fundamental metaphor of this movie. The birds are a gigantic metaphor for one thing primarily, and that is love. Let me explain. In the first scene, when Melanie and Mitch meet for the first time, they meet in a bird shop. And immediately a bird escapes when they are interacting with one another. And then Mitch wants to buy so-called love birds for his little sister as a birthday present. And so Melanie then actually buys the love birds to gift them to the little sister of Mitch, but obviously it's just an excuse to meet Mitch again. So immediately we have this very basic standard metaphor of love birds. Birds are a metaphor for love. But then we are introduced to a different kind of love, and that is the Oedipal, Freudian, anxious, angry love of the mother of Mitch. Mitch has an evil, possessive mother, and when she appears the first time in the movie, that's when the first actual bird attack happens. Melanie gets attacked by a bird randomly, and 60 seconds later, the mother of Mitch appears in the movie for the first time. And the movie shows basically that there are different kinds of love. There are like obsessive, compulsive types of love. Then there are innocent, friendly types of love, like the lovebirds. They always behave normally. And look precisely at the film, and you will see that every bird attack happens in the context of a compulsive type of love. So, for example, the ex-lover of Mitch also lives in the small town Bottega Bay, or whatever it's called. And then there are, for example, scenes where Melanie and this ex-lover of Mitch are talking about the Oedipal complex, like in Freud and so on. And immediately, while they are talking, a bird flies into the door of the house, and then they go towards the door and open it, and there is this dead bird, and then they look at each other and say, oh my god, what did the bird want, and so on. Yes, the bird is a metaphor for this Oedipal complex, for the envy, for the compulsive type of love that you two were just talking about, and so on. And the movie is incredibly dark in the way it ends, because if you remember, the movie ends with the birds almost killing Melanie. And Melanie, at the ending of the film, is so weak that she cannot really protest against the mother anymore. She cannot really be in a relationship with Mitch even anymore. She's almost dead. She's completely catatonic. She cannot speak and so on. And exactly at that point, the mother finally accepts Melanie, because Melanie is now powerless. The mother is no longer afraid of Melanie. Also, of course, something very Hitchcockian and Freudian. Melanie and the mother look almost alike. They have the same haircut even. It's just that the mother has like gray hairs and Melanie has still blonde hairs. But they look incredibly similar. And at the moment when Melanie has no more power, is almost dead, the mother takes her into her arms in the car when they leave. And that's the moment when the birds behave, when the birds are no longer attacking and they can drive away, but the birds still stay there. They don't fly away. It's just that this compulsive love that's connected with envy has been satisfied for the moment by Melanie being completely powerless, being almost killed by this incredibly compulsive love. And that's the only way the mother of Melanie can accept Melanie. So it's a super dark ending about compulsive love winning over the innocent, pure love of the two lovebirds that always behave well throughout the entire film. Another thing that's interesting about the movie is that I think that this is in a sense the connection between Sigismund Shlomo Freud's theories and the theories of the French philosopher Gilles Deleuze and the French psychoanalyst or schizoanalyst Félix Guattari. They wrote a pretty famous book called Anti-Oedipus. It appeared 1972, and there the entire book is basically Freud is an idiot, the Oedipal complex is a stupid proto-fascist idea that basically reduces every conflict into father, mother, son, and so on, and it's too primitive, it's too simplistic, and so on. And in The Birds, the entire movie is obviously about Freudian relationships, about the Oedipal complex. Again, as I've said, they even talk about the Oedipal complex. They even talk about Freudian theory in this movie. So it's incredibly obvious. But the birds are of all types, and it's not just one bird that's representative of love. As I've said, there are multiple types of birds, and all of them represent different types of love and of envy and of compulsive love and of innocent love and so on. And that's exactly what Deleuze and Guattari are for. They are basically saying Freud was too simplistic. We need a theory with multiplicities of things, with multiplicities of love. And they are theorizing about hordes of, for example, wolves and so on. They criticize Freud for not understanding the difference between one thing and a multiplicity of things. There's a famous anecdote where Carl Gustav Jung explains to Freud one of his dreams, and he says, I dreamt of thousands of bones, and Freud then always says, what, you dreamt of one bone? What does this mean, one bone, and so on. And Freud doesn't understand that there's a difference between one bone and a multiplicity of bones. But what we have in The Birds is a Freudian concept of love that is then in a Deleuze-Guattarian style understood as a multiplicity, as multiple birds, not one bird, not one love, but multiple birds, multiple types of love, and the birds even function in a sense as a war machine. In a Deleuze-Guattarian terminology, that means that it's like a force that and re-territorializes structures. So whenever the birds attack, the physical structures of like the entire landscape change, houses explode and so on, people die, but also the emotional states of the characters change. And yes, so I think it would be a great way to reconnect Freud with Deleuze and Guattari through Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. And to underline my hypothesis a last time, think about this infamous scene after this great bird attack. Melanie and all the other survivors are in a room together, and then an old woman gets to Melanie, looks her directly into the face, looks directly into the camera, and says, you are the reason for all of this. You are the reasons why the birds attack. That's exactly right. She's exactly right. Melanie is the reasons why the bird attack, because Melanie is the reason why the mother of Mitch experiences envy and this compulsive type of love. And with that, you should all read Deleuze, Guattari, and Freud and watch The Birds and put all of that together in a conclusive theory like I've just explained. Goodbye.